Good evening and welcome to All Things Sky Blue. In conversation, we have got a special guest coming on shortly that I'm very excited about. But first of all, let me get my normal stuff out of the way first. Just remember where you can find us. We're available on YouTube. Please go and like and subscribe. Twitter or X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We're sponsored by Right Steel Fabrications. His logo is in the corner. Give him a ring for any steel fabrications that you need doing up and down the country, but he is based mainly in the Coventry and Warwickshire area. We're also partnered with the Anecdote Sports Bar at the CBS Arena. Anything that we do on here as well, on YouTube, goes on to podcasts. So you can, if you don't want to watch us and just listen to us, we are available on Spotify, Amazon, and wherever else you get your normal podcasts from. So let me bring in my co-host, as always, Mark Smith. How are you, Mark?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Stuart. Hope everyone listening's good, and really looking forward to our interview.
Yeah, looking forward to our guest. Now, before I introduce our guest, he has 253 appearances in the league over various different clubs, and he scored 38 goals. And it is none other than Franck Moussa. Good evening, Frank. How are you?
Good evening, Stuart. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming on. Much appreciated. So let's dive straight into it. At the ripe old age of 16, you started at Southend. How did you sort of get yourself to over to Southend really as well? You know, how did it all begin for you?
Well, it all began for me by coming firstly from Brussels, from Belgium, to the UK. So as a 14-year-old, 14, I was transitioning to come into the UK. And I was already playing for Anderlecht, which was a very good standard in Belgium. And from there, because it was a bit of a family move, to be honest, but because I was playing football at such a high level, my brother, acting at my age in some capacity, managed to get me a trial with West Ham at the time, and West Ham took me on. So I was on their books as a schoolboy for a couple of years, and then when it came to scholarship time, I did not quite get a scholarship. So when it came down to looking at different clubs, Southend was one of the clubs that was quite local, around the sort of London area. Southend wasn't too far, and they gave me a chance to come in and sign a scholarship there. And what happens in clubs like Southend is that the first team and the youth team train next to each other. So if you do well at the weekend, you have a good chance of, if they need numbers, go and train with the first team. That was kind of the reward and the incentive. And so it wasn't too long before I got to train with the first team a little bit, get that bit of experience. And that season, Southend were doing really well in League One. And they were actually on course to be promoted to the Championship. And again, as a part of a reward for my performances in the youth team, the first team manager got me in the first team a few times and got me my debut. So it was brilliant at such a young age to be able to experience first team football, and that just gave me the thirst for much more.
Who was your manager at the time? Can you remember?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he actually was Steve Tilson, and this manager was my manager for the next 5 years. And throughout my career, I realized that it's very rare to have the same manager for 5 years like that.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, it was quite successful, I believe, in the next season, because you helped Southend get promoted, didn't you, as well, up to the Championship. So very successful spell really at such a young age, really as well. Anything on his early days, Mark?
Just trying to think what else I've got on there. I haven't really got much else. I'm just more on the Coventry side that I've got.
Okay, no worries, that's fine. So let's fast forward then, shall we? You arrived in the 2012-2013 season on a free transfer from Leicester, I believe it was at the time. Going through that, yeah. So how did that come about? How did you hear about Coventry City, and how did it all come about, you starting?
Yeah, well, it was a case of when I was at Leicester, I'd spent some time on loan at Doncaster, also in the Championship at the time. And we were showing a Driscoll there playing and doing quite well. But when I came back to Leicester, the club had just changed, overnight. It was the Thai ownership that came in. They flew us all over to Thailand and showed us, the ranch and the infrastructure that's going to sort of run the club at Leicester. So we knew there'd be a bit of a change, and that means new players coming in and different things like that. Manager change as well. Sven came in. He actually gave me a new contract, but off the back of that, you could just tell the place was going to be totally different. So when it came to get some playing time, I'd already made a move from sort of League One to the Championship at the time at Leicester. It was off the back of playing regularly, and I didn't think it would sort of work to sort of stay at Leicester and not play, or not as much anyway. So at the age of, I think I was 22, something like that, there was a change of management at Coventry as well. And Mark Robbins was coming in. And as he was coming in, the season had just started, I believe. It wasn't too long before the season started. My agent made me aware that, look, that could be an opportunity to go get some games, get your name sort of back on the map. And so I was able to arrange something with Leicester that I was able to get on a free to Coventry. And it was right at the start of Mark Robbins' first spell. So we kind of came together, or he brought me with him. And it was a great decision at the time.
Yeah, obviously we know about, we certainly know about Mark Robbins now, don't we? He is kind of, he is gone into our legend status. How was he as a coach? Obviously, you may not know what he's like now, because obviously people do change. But back in when you first met him and stuff, what was he like as a coach? Was he hands-on, or was he very much sort of taking a back step and seeing things from a back end sort of scenario? What was he like as a coach?
Yeah, no, I felt he was pretty hands-on. To be fair, on the training ground, he was there. He was a striker, which I had to do a bit of research myself to understand, the background of what he was like and what he did himself in his career. But he was a striker. I was a attacking midfielder, so in a sense, he would give me a few tips, do extra sometimes in training in terms of finishing and things like that. So he really had a desire to improve players. And that was very evident from the first moment that I started working with him. So I was very disappointed to see him go when he did go eventually to Huddersfield. But it was a great relationship I had with him, and we kind of kept in touch after as well. But yeah, it was a great experience.
Fantastic. Obviously, go on, Mark. You were going to say something.
I was going to ask about. I think you played against Arsenal. I think in one of your first games for us in the League Cup, and obviously didn't go to plan. I think 6-1. Talk us through what it was like playing at a stadium like the Emirates Stadium and a big crowd and that. Was you quite nervous about the occasion, or was it something you was really excited about?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't go according to plan. I'm not exactly sure what the plan was going to the Emirates, but it was obviously to do the best we could, and obviously playing against a Premier League outfit is the stuff of dreams, really. So for me, and adding to my own personal story, I mentioned coming to the UK as a youngster. One of the first that my brother agent got me a trial with was actually Arsenal. So I got to train and play there for a little while. But I always had this mindset that what a club to sort of play for, to play at what kind of stadium that would be, Highbury or the Emirates eventually. So for me to make my debut for Coventry at the Emirates, that was just an unbelievable moment. And we got to actually play there twice in my time at Coventry. But yeah, I was nervous. Obviously, it's your debut. You want to impress, and you want to come out having performed as best as you could. But yeah, I've got great memory from that debut.
Oh, fantastic!
In terms of that sort of game, is it? Obviously, Stuart, I never played, but for me, yourself as a player, was the speed just so much quicker than what you get accustomed to in a typical League One, League Two kind of game? I'm assuming. Is it just the train of thought, the mind, the speed, the movement? That's probably the thing I see a lot when I watch games at that sort of level.
Yeah, at that time, as I said, came back from Leicester, so I had a little experience of players that play at quite a decent level, a few international players at Leicester. So I knew that there was different levels of football. So when you play with good players or great players, you sort of adapt to that as well. You up your game. But when you play against international superstars that Arsenal had, even in their second string, the players that they put out there were still, Giroud, which World Cup winners, Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think at the time played. So many players all over the pitch. That you're going to be in for a challenge, and the idea is just to, like I said, give your best performance and give them a game, really, to be honest. But you know the level of experience and technique that they've got, they're always going to be favourites.
Yeah, definitely. You know, obviously, you mentioned about Mark Robbins' first spell. I think he left quite early on. I think it was in January or February that he left. I think it was. Stephen Presley came in, and obviously he kept playing you because obviously you were a very talented boy at the time. What was the different coaches' styles like? What was Stephen Presley like, and how does he compare to what Mark Robbins was like the first time around?
Yeah, I mean, it was a real contrast between the two, I must admit, because Stephen Presley came in with a very clear idea of how he wanted to play, which was not totally sort of contradictory to Mark Robbins' one, but he was very focused on high level pressing and winning the ball back and expectation on high level of fitness all over the pitch, which was a bit of a revolution in terms of how the change rooms had to adapt to that. And I mean, it did sort of pay dividend in regards to, we did get some decent results, and even as we sort of overlapped into the next season, we had the 10 points deduction. We still were able to start the season quite well and get out of that sort of dilemma quite quickly. So there were results that was gotten off the back of Stephen Presley's management style, but it was real contrast, and it was a lot to adapt to.
Was he still very much hands on, or was he taking a back seat a little bit and just watching from afar?
Yeah, I think for me, as far as I'm concerned, he was very much of like I said, a change of style. So I think he was really determined to make sure everybody understands what he wants, and he sometimes it takes time, like a month or 2 or 3, and by the time we kind of realized what he actually expected from us, it was a real sort of a mindset change for everybody involved. So he was definitely hands-on, but it was sort of a team perspective more so than individual, as far as I can remember.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, you were with us for 2 seasons, but in them 2 seasons, a lot went on, as you've already mentioned. Your 10-point deduction, and then obviously we had to go to Sixfields and play at Sixfields Stadium for a season, or just over a season. Yeah. What was the difference from playing at the Rico to Sixfields? And obviously the attendances massively dropped, and you were playing at sort of 11,000, and then all of a sudden just over 2,000. What did you feel it in the background as players? Was there noise and stuff like that going on?
Well, for me personally, I came from knowing that Coventry's big club as far as I was concerned. Even before coming to the UK, I knew of Coventry, so playing at the Rico Arena and all these things was a big deal for me. Signing for Coventry, the change that happened and going to Sixfields, it was difficult to take at first because, of course, smaller stadium, unrest with sort of the fans and ownership, and you're not quite understanding what's happening. The 10-point deduction is not great environment to sort of come and play football. But I must say, there was 2 things that sort of come to mind. Is firstly, it got us all together as a team because we were back against the wall a little bit, and everybody has something to prove. And secondly, we had the good core of homegrown players from Coventry. So I remember the likes of Cyrus and Connor, a lot of players that had sort of Coventry on their back that really wanted to do well for the club. So when you see sort of that spirit in the team, in the squad, it just made you want to go and perform at your best. And even the fans, I remember at Sixfield, the fans over the hill at times, you're playing and they're everywhere. So there was still support, and you could feel that, and it made you want to give your best.
Yeah, it was. I think it was it known as Coventry Hill, Mark, or something, Coventry Mound, or something, weren't it?
Coventry, yeah, it's a bit like Wimbledon, isn't it? With, the Murray Mound or Hemman Hill.
That's what it was. If I remember rightly, anyway. So,
I think there were the fans who didn't want to go into the stadium but wanted to watch from afar.
That's right.
So that's what it was. Yeah. I tell you one thing though. When we were playing at Northampton, was there a lot of like high scoring games, wasn't there? I mean, Bristol City game 5-4. I mean, that was a ridiculous game to play. What was that like?
Yeah, no, it was one of the first games of the season, if not the first. But
I think it was the first time.
Yeah, I think you got a bit of a feeling of what kind of season it was going to be. You know, a lot was going to happen from that first game. You could tell that it wasn't going to be a normal season, and it turned out to be just one of those memories now.
Yeah. Is there any game at Sixfields that kind of springs to mind for good or bad for you?
Well, for me, probably one of those games was the Leyton Orient game, of course, because in that game I got to score a special goal. But I also remember at the time Leyton Orient was doing really well in the league, and that was a bit of a not a shock result, but again, it's a display of how well we felt as a team we could actually do and how well we could perform, and we were quite fearless in those games. It's Tuesday night games, Saturday games. We just went out there and I thought we did quite well. But yeah, there's quite a few. Even that 5-4 game, it was amazing. You know, on a sunny day, it was great.
I've got to confess to say, my family are Leyton Orient fans, and I'm obviously the only Coventry fan. So they were pretty miserable after that game, and I was absolutely delighted. So yeah, you made my day, Frank. So I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, obviously you've mentioned some players there. You've played with some really, really good players from a Coventry City perspective, if you like. John Fleck, David McGoldrick, Gary McSheffrey, Callum Wilson in his early days. Yeah. I'm not sure whether you played with James Madison, but I think he might have been coming through just coming through. So how was it? Could you tell, especially, you know, Callum Wilson and James Madison, could you tell that they were special players from such a young age? Could you envision, if you like, their trajectory and what they've gone on to do?
Well, I must admit, when it comes to Callum and Matters, they're both gone on to play for England. I mean, that's an unbelievable feat. I don't know that I could have sort of foretold that at the time. But what I have picked up over the years, and that's football and general life experiences, that, you know, to do well, there are some characteristics and certain features of character that people have that, you know, is going to make them go far. Don't know how far, but I remember James Madison being quite, you know, cheeky and quite confident even as a youth team player. And I thought, okay, well, you need to back that up. And I played to him. Callum, again, quite cheeky lad and quite a loud voice in the change rooms. But when he went on the pitch, very confident character. And, you know, when he displays his talent and scores goals, he's unstoppable. So when you do that over time and you're able to go from one level to another and keep performing, you can only keep going higher and higher. And they've reached probably the top as far as the Premier League is concerned. So fair play to them. And Flecky, same, very, very good player, very serious. And you could just tell that, you know, if he gets because sometimes there's also a little bit of rubber the green that needs to be there, right? And
yeah.
Have it at the right place at the right time. You know, I think the rest takes care of itself. And a few of those boys have done magnificent, and I'm really, really, really happy for them.
Yeah. Obviously, going back slightly in your career, you know, you did play for Belgium under 18 and 19. What was it like representing your country? Was it a different atmosphere? What sort of stadiums did you play in?
Yeah, well, it was a great experience. Got to travel, you know, different places in terms of I played a tournament in Russia. I remember playing there. And, you know, you just get to, again, life experiences, because you go and you play, you represent your country, but you also get to see the world, and you get to think of your sort of craft as something that's actually unbelievable, because I'm enjoying doing this, but at the same time, I'm being asked to do something that I probably would have done for free. So at this point, you know, some of the players that I got to play with as well, like Toby Alderweireld and just you know, so many players that are new, again, that they got the right ingredients. You just don't know how far it will take us. But, you know, Axel Witsel is still playing now at Atletico Madrid. So you just know that, you know, our generation, my year group, again, if you get to play for your national team, that means that you're on the right path. So, yeah, it was amazing experiences at such a young age. So great memories as well.
Yeah, excellent. Anything, Mark?
I was going to ask you, I should have asked you to start actually, about, you know, who was your heroes growing up as a young boy, like before you became professional? Which players do you look up to? you started?
Yeah, I had a few. I mean, as I said, being from Belgium, right next to France, then you have the French players at the time were doing amazingly well in the 98, 2000, era. So Zidane has to be the main man, for my age group, and we would just watch him, and everybody was to emulate him, wear the number 10, wear the Predator Adidas boots, and but again, as you sort of move on and start to realize what kind of player you want to become, I start watching a bit more of the likes of Okocha or Lampard. I used to love the French connection at Arsenal. That's why I keep saying about we knew that these players are sort of the top of the top. So these were sort of my early sort of role models.
Yeah,
fantastic, excellent. It's great to for you to just obviously we will come on slightly to obviously when you did finish your career. Did you see yourself staying in the sport, or did yourself not want to? Because obviously a few people that have retired say that they don't want anything else to do with football. Once their career's finished, that's it. They stay as far away as they can. Was that the same for you, or did you want to go into coaching or anything like that?
Well, I don't know, to be honest. What sort of happened was I did my coaching badges. So I did my UFB license. So qualified to coach younger players and sort of give that a go. But, I don't know that I wanted to take a break from football as such, but I didn't see myself being on the training grounds, setting up cones and setting up sessions every day. I don't think that's something that I could sort of see myself doing, especially right after I finished playing. And that's why I did the qualification. I put them on the side, knowing that in the future, if that sort of comes up, at least I'm ready to go ahead and do that. And then, in terms of life situation, I had a few other things going on at the time when my career came to a bit of an end. I was getting married. I was sort of getting to a place where it felt really like I'm transitioning to something different now. And I don't know that football had to be a part of it at that stage. It's been about 4 years now that I sort of played my last game, and I do get that sense of I want to get involved again in football, right? So I'm definitely keeping my eye on something that I've done for since I was a little boy until I became a man. So that's something that's a huge part of my life. But at the same time, I just need to know exactly where both sort of elements of what I'm doing now and what I've used to do are going to sort of tie in together. So it's just in my mind anyway.
Because obviously on Wiki it said that you went to NatWest Bank. Are you still there now? Are you?
Yeah. I work as a senior personal banker, so I'm working in sort of a financial industry, helping people with their finances, helping people with their day-to-day sort of money, because money, let's be honest, is a huge part of people's lives. And as a professional footballer, I was able to see how much of an impact finances can have on your life at the beginning, throughout, at the end. And that's something that I've always had a keen interest in. So when I finished playing, that actually excited me a bit more than, like I said, going out and delivering coaching sessions, for example.
Yeah.
But like I said, I have a few passions and a few interests. So that's why I was able to sort of not, make rash decisions, to informed decisions rather.
Did you not want to go into punditry? Because loads of people now, Darren Bent's on Talk Sport, and other, Neville Carragher, there's loads now. Rio Ferdinand. Did punditry not interest you at the time when you finished?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I don't know that was my first sort of go-to in terms of because I don't want to sound sort of bitter in any ways, but it's very difficult when you play football to just go and watch a game of football or talk about a game of football without being involved yourself. So as much as I said I had different interests, I think it also was great for me to sort of take a little step back to reevaluate where I was at with everything. And as I said, because I was going through a transition in my personal life, I wanted to enjoy that to the fullest. And I felt like if I stuck to football a bit too much, it would have felt a little bit like I'm hanging on, as opposed to really flying, up my own wings and stuff. So a bit of that going on as well.
Okay, fair enough. Anything, Mark?
Do you still keep an eye on Coventry's results as well? Do you still look out for our results? And what do you think of our season so far from what you've seen? Or
Yeah, I mean, I just saw again FA Cup won the other day, done really well. See Casey Palmer is a player that I was aware of for a long time actually, and again seems to be doing quite well as well. So I did see the Wembley heartache last year.
Yeah.
I was cheering with all that I could and believing, that it may be, just the moment to get back to the promised land. But it looks like again the boys are giving it a good go again this season. There's absolutely no reason why not. They can't get back into the playoffs by the end of the season and give it another shot. But yeah, it looks quite positive at the moment. And being back at the Rico again, that's a positive step, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you support any team, by the way, Frank?
Just my local Anderlecht back home in Brussels.
Oh, okay.
So here in the UK, I had to sort of cheer on the team I was playing for at the time wherever I went. But now that I don't play, all of these teams I've got a special place in my heart.
Oh, fantastic. Anything, Mark? Anything to add?
I just forgot to ask. One question I forgot to ask is another game you played. I think you played against Tottenham in the FA Cup. I think when we lost, I think we lost quite heavily. I think that game. We were in the and we wore the '87 Cup. What was the experience like playing at White Hart Lane as well?
Yeah, great experience. Great experience. Just again, the stadium in itself is an amazing venue to sort of play football at. But then again, is the players you get to play against as well. Because I remember that particular game, Gareth Bale played. I believe Adebayor played. Tom Huddlestone maybe. So Scotty Parker. So players that growing up, as a matter of fact, because I was born in the late 80s, the likes of Scotty Parker, I would have watched him on TV growing up playing, right?
Yeah.
And for me to get to play against them is part of the sort of experience that footballers get to have, is that you have a dream and then you get to play and then you get to play against the players that you dreaming of. So that's something that's very rare. And in some respects the result is disappointing, but you still walk away with amazing memories from these matches. So Coventry, Tottenham at White Hart Lane, that was good.
Yeah. Obviously, going back to your contract, obviously you signed for a 2-year deal. Did you want to, obviously, because I wanted you to stay, like many fans probably did, with your wonder goals, Leyton Orient that you scored, which ended up to be goal of the season that year, goal of the month in January. You beat Carl Baker, actually. He came second in that one. And then you were also player of the month in January 2014 as well. So, I've lost my train of thought then, what I was going to say. Did you want to extend it, or was it out of your hands in terms of extending that deal with us?
Well, when it came down to the last sort of few months of the season, it actually became a little bit challenging as a team, because if you remember the time where I left, a few months before that, Leon... a few players were sort of on their way out as well. So what that meant is that the season after, the team might look completely different. There was a few people out of contract as well, and Leon Clark, he left to Wolves. Callum, it was clear that something was going to happen with the way he ended the season. And for myself, I was becoming out of contract now. The contract that was put on offer to me by sort of Coventry at the time, I think it kind of reflected the lack of sort of confidence or stability that we had as a club,
the situation that everything was in,
the direction that it was going. So I don't know that the likes of Cyrus Christie or Leon Clark or Callum that ended up leaving would have been sort of a surprise for many people, that it sort of took that opportunity to sort of move on. The truth of the matter is, and I really still believe that to this day, is that had we kept that team all together, Leon not leaving in January, and the form that we kind of seemed to have just before Christmas, I really thought we had a shot at getting the team to the Championship, as opposed to a handful of players moving on to the Championship in different directions. So that's maybe one of the regrets perhaps that I have, because I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Coventry, and should the story have been different, I would have stayed very happily. But as in the last sort of decades, the situation at the club hasn't always been very stable. So it's always difficult to make decisions in those times.
Yeah, it's completely understandable. Like I said, you're one of the best free signings that we had, and one of the worst to go because we all just wanted you to stay, and it was a shame that you left. But obviously, if you saw what we kind of saw as well to a certain extent, it's always harder with that in mind as well. Anything else, Mark?
Yeah, and I echo that. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's like any job, isn't it? When obviously back at the time we were in a bad position financially, a lot of sort of problems off the field, and if I was in your position, Frank, I'd do the same as well. We'd all do the same from a personal
100%.
point of view. Because I think you do what's right for your career, and it's a short career, as you know, and you need to earn as much money as possible, and that. So it was perfectly understandable. But who do you think was the best player you played with at Coventry? Which player do you think you thought, oh God, I wish I could play with him every week, or you'd like to still play to this day?
At Coventry, for me, he has to be McGoldrick. He has to be David McGoldrick, because I'd come across him before at Notts Forest, when he was at Notts Forest, but he was a special player, and he's one of those players that you enjoy playing with because he will make it sort of easier for you to link up, and he can produce something spectacular out of nowhere. So it's actually an enjoyment to play alongside him. As we know now, out of that bunch, a lot of players went on to do amazing things and do really well. So I could have named 10, but when it comes to who I enjoyed playing with at the time, was David McGoldrick, I would have to say.
Oh, fantastic.
He was a really good finisher, though, McGoldrick, particularly like
Amazing.
one-on-ones. He was really good. I went to Orient away, I think, in the 2012-13 season. I think we won 1-0 at Brisbane Road, and I think he rounded the keeper and scored. And it was just the way he finished it. He just looked really confident. Because there's some strikers you watch, and in one-on-one you think, yeah, I know he's going to score that. It's just the body language. Callum Wilson had that as well. He had that sort of look of, I know he's going to score that. Sometimes I watch our players at the moment, and you just think, oh, no, going to miss. Even Hadji Wright. If we go back to Millwall, sorry, I'm just going a bit off topic here, but the Millwall game that we just last played with Hadji Wright, and Callum here plays a really good ball to Hadji Wright, and I thought, Hadji Wright against the keeper, I just think he hit it straight at the keeper, and it might go for a corner, but fortunately it went under the keeper's hand and just crept in, so I was really, really happy about that. But I think the point is that the players that you played with, Frank, there were some really, really good players back then. And I just think it's a shame, you made a good point, that had we kept that group of players together, I think we really could have made a push to get up to the Championship, because I think we had a really good team. It's just a shame with what happened off the field, things that are outside your control, you can do nothing about. And that's what killed us, really, killed the team, so to speak, because the players, really, it's not their fault. And it's good to hear that the teams, the camaraderie was really galvanised by the fact he's playing Northampton, because it could have either go one way. It could either go like it did, you just described it, or it could have gone the other way, and players be like, oh, what am I doing playing here? I can go elsewhere in a much better wage and play at a much nicer stadium, kind of thing. So I think it's really positive to hear about the players and the team spirit. It's really, really good to hear.
Yeah, I think we've got that now, to be fair. That team spirit has definitely come back. We've been through the hard times, playing at Sixfields, playing at Birmingham, but Mark Robbins has now come back. For the past 6-7 years now, we've been progressing nicely. Going back to your career though, Frank, unfortunately you had to retire relatively early at the age of 30, didn't you? Did you feel the pains coming on sort of earlier on, or was it a sudden at the age of 30, my knees are gone kind of thing?
No, it was pretty progressive. I mean, we talk about my move from Coventry to Charlton, and actually it started affecting me when I got to Charlton, really.
Okay.
Yeah, very early on, my first sort of pre-season, really, I had back pains that I must admit I kind of took a little bit from my last few weeks at Coventry, but still enough to sort of start at Charlton, but then it sort of developed into sort of a knee issue that was tendonitis. For that's actually what it was, just inflammation in the knee. But at the time, I wasn't sure what it was. I went to see different doctors and different sort of the physio. We got injections in it, another injection, more injections, and it sort of got worse and worse. I managed to sort of trying to play through it all because I'm a determined person. I want to just impress, and I want to do what I can to help my team at the time. But it never really sort of got healed properly, and as sort of that took longer and longer, I went to see a surgeon, Harley Street in London, and he kind of said that this needs to just rest. You need to just stop and leave it because it's not going to get better by still running and playing on it. And from that time, I had about 9 months out where he never sort of got better, and I was keeping fit and things like this. But by the time I came back for Charlton after that long injury, half of the season, if not most of the season, had gone. So, and as you know, in football, the new manager, things just changed. But I was able to get back sort of in the team and get a few games here and there. And then from then on, when I moved on from Charlton, I still signed for a few clubs here and there. But one thing was very clear to me is that knee was never really the same. Yeah. So my performance and the way I wanted to play and the agility that I once showed and the speed of change of, all of these things, I had to readapt my game and become a different player, really, which, like I said, I still managed to get a few contracts and play a few games here and there. But in myself, I never felt sort of the same. So when it came to an end, I must say towards my last team at Gillingham, I played a game. It was the last game of the season, and I sort of did sort of grade 1 little tear on my hamstring, and then I could just see that between my body things were just not quite right. So I had the option to sort of carry on and trying to train here and there, or look at different options that I may have, even to go abroad and all of that. But as I sort of alluded to earlier, in my mind, and I actually look back even now with the same sort of calmness of mind, I think it was a good time to just give it a rest and move on, because I started quite early, as you mentioned, Stu, earlier at 16. So I'd played over 12 odd years.
Yeah.
I felt I had a good go, I had great memories. Mark, you mentioned all these stadiums I got to play at, and he's like, you know what? I don't, and that's the thing about hanging on to football as much and as long as I can. I felt because I had that early start, so to speak, I'd give it an honest go, and I enjoyed it. And one of the surgeons mentioned to me when I initially had the knee injuries that there is such thing as having so many injection and issues that you can't then run in the park with your kids when you're older. And at the time, I didn't have any kids yet, but that picture kind of stayed in my mind for a long time. So I felt it was a time to just move on, keep the memories, and then, like I said, see what comes next.
Yeah, obviously a lot of players nowadays, they come out the sport, and I think it's a lot easier now. Did you get much support when you finished, or was you completely left on your own?
Well, the two very important points there that you actually make me think about now, that I remember actually happened the very first few moments, weeks, months, that I sort of made that decision that I'm going to move on. Is firstly, as I mentioned, I was getting great support from my fiance at the time, who obviously became my wife, and we also part of a church community. So I had a very stable sort of mindset about who I am and what I'm going to do. I'm not going to not become Frank anymore because I'm not playing in the stadium. So that was very helpful. The second thing that was very important to me was the financial part, because there is such a transition to be made between the income that you made as a footballer and then moving on to any other career that you're going to make, especially overnight. So that's where I said that I was really, really interested in the financial world, the financial sector. Firstly, to help myself and to understand what kind of options and moves I was going to make. But two, because I realized this is something that I thought about the last 2 or 3 years before I retired, that this was going to be something to make decisions and to consider. But when it actually happens, it became a reality that I don't know that many of us are really ready for, because there is such a preparation to be made, like I said, from years prior. And I had a very good agent that helped me to make some wise decisions. But I wanted to know for myself, hence why I started studying some things, and I got to work in a bank, and now I'm working in giving financial advice, because I understand that, especially in football and as a young man in the 30s, it's so vital to have a great understanding of how to deal with finances. So that was a great are the two main things I had to think about when I first stopped playing.
Okay, fair enough. Anything to add, Mark?
No, nothing really. No.
Happy with everything? Okay, so as I always do with our guests, Frank, I do a bit of a quick fire question. Look, it can be more than one word. I would like one word, but it can be more. So there's nothing too tricky in there. But yeah, just a bit of a quick fire round for you. So first one is favourite goal. And you can't say Leyton Orient.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that because I wasn't even going to say that one.
Okay.
I was going to say Preston away.
Yeah.
Last minute equaliser. Ball drops to me, 30 odd yards, left foot volley, top corner. I mean, this is where you practice as
you're
much
in
as
your you're in your yellow kit as well,
in
you?
the yellow kit. Yeah.
Oh.
And that's away at Preston. Big game in that league at the time, and the fans all there. And it's just a relief for the team. And I think even Stephen Presley ran and celebrated with the players. So, yeah, special goal, that one.
Yeah, it was. I remember it. I remember it well. Favourite ground?
Favourite ground that I've played at as a one-off?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, the Emirates. Magnificent pitch, magnificent stadium. And, again, I got to have, people come to watch me there as well, so it was like I said, because I wanted to, experience the Arsenal lifestyle, for lack of a better word. So when I got to play against them at their stadium, and at the time, Mark, it was actually Arsene Wenger, the manager. So we took, the real Arsenal.
The real one.
Special stadium.
Yeah, I think when you play at a ground like that, especially must be for a footballer as well, I think it just epitomises everything about being a footballer, doesn't it? Playing at a beautiful stadium, with your family there to watch you and people watching you and stuff, as you've said as well. It encompasses everything that a footballer wants to be and wants to be playing at, doesn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. Favourite manager or coach? Not just at Coventry, throughout your career.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, I want to say Paulo Sousa. Now, Paulo Sousa signed me to Leicester, and he actually only stayed for about 3 months before he got the sack. But in that 3 months, I got to pick up a lot from the guy. I mean, he was a midfielder when he played. I think he has one of these records that is one of the only players to have won the Champions League with Juventus and I think Dortmund and like different clubs. So he's somebody that's got something to say. And when he speaks, and he was a very eloquent guy, and Portuguese swagger, and he made you want to sort of enjoy your football. So in that short stint, and Leicester was a pivotal time of my sort of career as well, because when I got to Leicester, I actually lived there for 4 years, even while I was still playing for Coventry. So Leicester's got a special place in my heart as well. And
okay.
Paulo brought me there, so yeah, I'll have to put him up there.
Okay, fair enough. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Good answer. Yeah, good answer.
Yeah. You've kind of answered this one, I think, a little bit. Who would you like to play with now if you could still play?
As a player?
Yeah, nowadays. So obviously, current players, who would you like to have played with?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Well, probably Kevin De Bruyne.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Kevin De Bruyne. Again, I talk about players that are so skillful and so elegant that that if I play with him, I'm gonna love it, because he's just again making football look beautiful and very effective at what he does. So I'd love to play midfield with him.
Fantastic. Excellent. So what does the future hold for Franck Moussa? Do you hope to get back into football, or are you happy with half and half, if you like, half being in the financial sector and half football?
Yeah, I think to be honest, too, I think that's what's probably going to happen. I'm passing some sort of diplomas and qualification in sort of financial advice independently as well. So whilst I'm working in banking, I work in London. I'm getting great experience in that. But whilst I sort of also pass my qualifications, I believe that once I get this all together, I think there's a great opportunity for me to use both experience that I've had in terms of the footballing world and the world of finance, and sort of make them meet together. And that's, I think, where sort of I'm sort of headed. I've got a little boy who's 8 months old, so if he shows any interest in football, then I think the UEFA B coaching badge might come out of the, you know. I might consider it at that point, I believe, but at this point, the sort of financial sector is what's got my heart. But I've got a special place for sports people and footballers specifically, because I've been there and I know sort of the things to look out for.
Well, if your lad turns out half as good as you, mate, he'll have one hell of a career. So all I can say is, again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. All the best for the future in anything that you do, Frank. You, like I said at the start, you were one of my favourite free agents, one of my favourite players of that time. And like I said, some of the goals that you scored were absolutely fantastic. I'm not just saying it because you're on now. I'd say it to anybody walking down the street. And if we spoke about them times, you would be one of the first people that I spoke about. You were brilliant for us, and I'm really happy that I've managed to got you on and met you as well. So if you ever come to Coventry for a game, get in contact, and we'll certainly meet up for a beer.
Yeah, no, that's definitely on the cards. In terms of I was planning actually to come to some Cov games in a sort of near future. So absolutely, we'll catch up when I'm there.
Fantastic, That'd be great. That'd be really good. Anything to add, Mark, before we finish off?
I was going to ask very quickly: do you keep in contact with any players from the Cov? Which players you keep in contact most?
Yeah, well, to be fair, in the change rooms, we were. I don't know if you remember William McJengle. We were both French speakers, so that was we sort of kept in touch over the years here and there, and football is such a wild world, and you play for so many teams that. What happens that as you sort of meet in different places, like you never left, and you're still back in that change room. So effectively, people have gone different places, different cities, different towns. But I know there's also some reunions happening at different times as well. So these are the best times really to catch up. But apart from that, everybody's everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. All right, pal. Well, we'll leave it there. Once again, thank you very much for coming on, Frank. It's been a pleasure. And like I said before, good luck in everything that you do, and I hope your family and everything wish you well.
Thanks.
All right, buddy.
Yeah,
no worries.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on. Cheers, buddy.
Bye-bye.